Okay. This course is about how to create custom course styles using Rapid Intake. So hopefully you know the basics of Rapid Intake, whether it be Unison or whether it be ProForm. Now, whether you're a Unison or ProForm user, we're going to be talking about both. And so if you're not, during the times that we'll talk about how to get the files from ProForm, if you want to tune out during that time, that's fine, or how to get the files from Unison. Now, the nice thing about these products is whether you get the files from Unison or whether you get the files from ProForm, once you get the files that you're going to be customizing, it's the same thing. So the only difference between ProForm and Unison is how you get the files. And so you get the files from ProForm in a different way, and then in Unison from a different way, and then once you have those files, you can go ahead and customize it in the same way. Now, once you put the files back, you put them back in ProForm a different way than you do inside of Unison. So those are really only going to be the differences between those, and they don't take too long to cover whether you're talking about Unison or whether you're talking about ProForm as far as getting those files and putting away those files. Excuse me. But we do have both ProForm and Unison customers on the line, and that will be watching this as well, so we are going to be going over both of them. So just so you know, what is a custom style? A custom style is when you take one style that already exists inside of ProForm or Unison, and then you go in and graphically change it to be whatever buttons and styles that you want, how you want it laid out and everything like that. And so that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the pages and what the pages do. We're only talking about what the actual custom style, the wrapper around the actual content. If you want to learn about how to create custom pages so other people can use it, we have a different training on that. But we're only focused on what the user interface is, the next and back buttons, and basically the wrapper around the rest of the content. So I just want to make sure that that's clear before we begin. Now, you do not need to be a Flash programmer. You don't need to know ActionScript to go in and customize styles. You do, however, need to be a little bit familiar with Flash, and you do need to have Flash in order to actually go in and customize those styles. If you don't have Flash, then you won't be able to access these styles and or anything like that. Now, it depends on what you're wanting to do as well. So if you are wanting to add functionality to these styles, then yes, you need to know some programming, or at least know how to manipulate the existing code that's already there. Because we already have the code written out for you, so you don't really need to rewrite anything. If you're just graphically changing it out, you just need to swap out the graphics, basically. So it doesn't matter what level you're at, this training can be helpful for you, whether you're just doing stuff graphically or if you're wanting to get into the actual programming, and we'll talk about that. Some things to keep in mind. It's best to start, and these are some key points in creating custom styles. It's best to start from a new empty course with maybe one page of content. Now, the reason why you want to do that is because if you're trying to customize a style of an existing course, and you may, for some reason, something may happen to that course, and it would be hard to swap out all of the files to like an old style if something were to happen. And so it's, in my opinion, it's best to start from a new empty course, and then once you're done with that new empty course, you can then make it part of the rest of the courses and apply that course to other existing courses later. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. The next thing is to start the course and use it for your own testing course, or start the course and use it as your own testing course. So it's basically start it at a page and then use it for when you test it, you can see what some of the pages look like inside of that style. Now, do not use the course you've already built. I already mentioned some of this in case something happens to it. And then the last step is once you're done, you can apply this style to existing courses. And so I already mentioned that as well. Okay, so now let's talk about how to get the styles or how to get these files. The one key thing that you need inside of, if you're using ProForm, is you need the professional version of ProForm. If you don't have the professional version of ProForm, these files don't exist on your install. If you do have the professional version of ProForm, when you're creating a new course, you click on where I have highlighted in red there, or kind of pink, I guess, where it says Copy Source Files. And that will copy all of the Flash files, the ActionScript files inside of the course folder. The bottom picture there, you'll notice that it's just a picture of a bunch of files that is the course folder, and I just took that course folder, and once I've copied the source files in there, that's where I access the files. And it's the same thing with Unison. With Unison, when you're setting up a course, there's that same copy source files box that you need to make sure is checked. And once you have it checked, then you just go in and you download it from the admin tab. When you download it from the admin tab, you need to click on View Update Projects, and we'll go over this here in a second. You click on View Update Projects, and then there's a link to download all files, the zip files, and once those files are downloaded, the course structured is the same way as it's structured inside of ProForm. And so once we get to that point, everything else will apply to ProForm and Unison. So we'll talk about how to get those files here in a second. Now, I'll come back to this analogy a little bit, but I like to think of creating a custom style as creating the actual outer part of a car. You're creating the design. You're not really creating the different functionality inside of the car, although we'll talk about kind of the main engine of the actual course as well. So we'll come back to this structure, but I want to throw this out for now. This kind of gives you a rough idea of the different files that exist inside of a ProForm or Unison course. ProForm and Unison are both XML-based courses, and so they rely on multiple different files to run the information of the course and to run like different glossary terms and table of contents and stuff like that. The main file that you're going to be starting with is the player file. From that player file, the engine that runs the player file is the sco.xml file. We'll talk about how that's structured here in a second. The sco.xml file knows when to pull in what pages and what content to display inside of the player file, and the player file just makes it look good. And so we'll be talking about mainly how to customize the player file, glossary file, page types, cascading style sheets, and stuff like that. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. I won't be looking at that the entire time, but every once in a while I will stop to take a look at all our questions here. So I guess, all right. So I guess it's in the chat. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat area, basically. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's continue here. Let's jump into, I talked about where you can find these resources. Let's go ahead and jump into how to get these files. First of all, I'm going to get Unison started, and so I'm going to go to my Unison account. We'll talk about how to get the Unison files and how to get these so I can start customizing. I'm going to click Login, and like I mentioned before, it's good to start a new course. So I'm going to click on Add a Project. When you're creating a custom style, I like to think of this as, if I could spell right, that would help, custom style test. And so just something that you know this is a custom style. When you're creating something like that, no one else really needs to be assigned to this project unless someone else is helping you create a custom style. So in this case, just make sure yourself is checked. And then I'm going to click on Create My Project. Well, from here, this purpose of this project is just to get the files. And so I'm just going to click on Build Modify the Course. It'll take me to start a new course, and I can click on New Empty Course from here. Now, when I click on New Empty Course, it really doesn't matter what content you fill out here. If I click on Next Step, now it takes me to my course style. Now, here's something key. It's important to, or I think it's important to start from a style that already exists. The reason why is if you try to start a style from scratch, you're going to have to apply code where it's supposed to go and make sure the structure is there. Well, if you start from a style that you may like to begin with and then just go in and customize it graphically however you want, it's a good way to help you so you don't have to actually go in and apply, okay, this code needs to be there, this code needs to be there. So I'm just going to go ahead and select from the drop-down box a style here. This one's kind of an older style, so I'm going to just pick that for now, and then we'll talk about how to get that ready here in a second. I'm going to go to Next Step. It doesn't matter with my course logo. Hit Next Step, and now here's where my copy source files is. I need to make sure that that is checked, because if that is not checked, the Flash files and the ActionScript files will not be copied inside of this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Course. It might take a second here. And while that's pulling up, I'm actually going to skip over to my Windows side, and I'm going to pull up ProForm here to do the same thing on ProForm. So I'm going to launch ProForm. Just going to check back there, and I'm still copying the files in there. Excuse me. Okay. Now that I have ProForm up, I'm going to do the same thing I just did with Unison. I'm going to click on Start New ProForm Project. And then I'm going to set up a new project. I'm going to create a folder on my desktop. And then I'm going to click on Make New Folder. And I'm going to name this folder the same thing, Custom Style. And that's all I'm going to do for now. Click OK. Just give it a name, Test. And then this is where I copy my source files in there so that it gets copied inside of this project folder. I'm going to name it test here as well. It doesn't matter what else you do at this point except for pick the style that you want to start from here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a custom style here. I'm going to choose the same style and then click OK. Now it's going to copy all of the necessary files that it needs, the same thing that it was doing here inside of Unison. And if I'm in Unison, let's go ahead and skip back here while that's copying in the files. I'm going to hit Save, and then I'm going to click on Add a Page and just add some random content. So it's good to have at least one page in there so you can kind of see the content inside of the actual course. And so again, it really doesn't matter what content. So I'm just going to name it Test. Let's go ahead and just bring in an image here. I'm just going to bring in a random image. And then I'll just bring in some random audio as well. Okay. All right. So we have one page, we have some text, we have an image, an audio. Hit Save, and then close out of that. Once you close out of that, now you can come into the Admin tab. When you go into the Admin tab, you click on View Update Projects and go to this project where we just created. It says Custom Style -Test, but click on the files right next to that. And you'll notice where it says All Files, I have this link to a zipped file. Well, if I click on that zipped file, it may take a little while, but it's going to download a zipped folder with all of the files that I need. Well, meanwhile, over in ProForm, it's already created those files, but we do want to add an extra page here. So I'm going to delete the topic in here, and I'm going to add a page, and I'm just going to name this the same thing. So I'm doing the same thing that I just did inside of Unison. Okay, let's go ahead and scroll down to just a text, image, and audio page. Hit OK, and let's just type in the same things here. Link some audio. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with my image. Just go find an image. And let's just use that image for now. Okay, so we have that image, we have the audio file, we can hit Save, and that's pretty much it. You can, at this point, actually close down ProForm. At this point, you don't need ProForm. So I'm going to hit Close out of there. Let's go check on the progress. One thing that you'll notice with Unison, it may look like that it actually froze. It really didn't. You'll notice down at the bottom there's a progress bar, and it's still thinking. It does take a little while to download the files, but once those files are downloaded, then you're good to go there. So let's go ahead and skip back over and talk about the course structure inside of this folder, because ProForm takes a little bit, or it's quicker since the files are already on your desktop. So let's go ahead and open up these files and talk about some of these here. Okay. Okay. So this is, when you've copied in the source files, this is kind of the structure of the files. You'll notice some FLA files inside of here. You'll notice some SWF files, some XML files, cascading style sheet files, and a lot of different types of files. Well, when you're creating a custom style, the very first file that you want to start customizing is, let's go back to our keynote here, is the player file. The player file is the main file. This is the file that is the user interface. This is the file that has all of your next and back buttons. This is the file that has all of your the structure of the actual course. And so it's when you're graphically starting, this is the very first file that you want to adjust. Once you have that file adjusted, then you can come into the glossary file and make the glossary file look similar to that other file, or page types. So you can go into the page types and make them fit the player file, because you can't really go into the page types if you are going to be customizing pages, or the look of them at least. Then you want to make sure that the player file is where you want it to be first of all, so you don't have to go back in and make another change. Same thing with table of contents. Your table of contents, you want to make sure that if you've given more room in the player file for your table of contents, that shows up here as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and that's the main file that you want to play with, or you want to start customizing. And you want to make sure that you start customizing the FLA file. You can't customize an SWF file, but you don't really need to customize the player.html file. That just basically brings in this other file, or brings in the SWF file, and so that's really not a concern to begin with. And then once you've done that, then you can go ahead and start customizing these other files, like the media controller. The media controller that gets pulled up when the learner actually clicks on it, or sorry, when there's audio or when there's video. The glossary file, course logo, and course logo, you can open up the FLA and change out the course logo to be your own. Or one other thing is you may want to just embed your course logo inside of the player file, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later. Now, once you've gone in and you've customized these files, there are a couple other things that you need to adjust, especially if you're resizing the style. If you're resizing the style, you may want to go into the IE active content file and also the preview files as well. You don't have to, but that's what you can do in there. Now, I'm just talking about the actual course structure for now. So you'll notice inside of the course structure we have the media folder. The media folder, when you're customizing things, you don't need to actually adjust because that's just your media. But the SWFs folder is something that you will probably go into often. If you go into the SWFs folder, you'll notice this is where your quiz FLA is. Excuse me. If you're wanting to adjust how your quiz looks, this is the file that you would go in to start customizing. Template SWFs folder, another folder in, you'll notice that this is where all of your pages are. So when you're using like the definitions interaction, when you're using the image and audio page, the text page, the step-by-step page, the text audio page, this is where those pages are at, and that's where the FLA files are as well. So if you're wanting to adjust the look of that, you can go into this page and customize the look of that as well. Now, the one other main file that you're probably going to be using is the sco.xml file. The sco.xml file, when a course gets written, all that ProForm or Unison is doing is actually writing to the sco.xml file. And then what the player file does is it goes through that XML file and it displays all of the pages inside of here, and then it displays all of the content from the sco.xml file. We'll talk about that, and it's important to keep that in mind because there's some things that you can adjust inside of there. Looks like our style still downloading. Let's go ahead and just take this style while we're waiting. I'm just going to pull this up and just move it over to my Mac side because that's where my flash is. So let's go ahead and just move that over real quick. Okay, so I'm just going to take my custom style, drag it onto my Mac. Now it's on my Mac, and that's where let's go ahead and pull that up, and now that's where my folder is. Now, when I open this folder up, you'll see now all of my my Flash files and everything like that, so I can start opening this up here. Let me go ahead and see if there's any questions so far. Not seeing any yet, so I'm going to go ahead and continue. Okay, so let's first of all get into the player.fla file. I'm going to click on the player.fla file, and it's going to pull up Flash for me. Okay. Now my screen's a little bit smaller, so let's go ahead and adjust some things, see if we can get it a little bit so we can see it a little bit more. All right. So here is our player.fla file. We're going to talk about the different elements of this player.fla file. The first element that I want to talk about is how this course actually gets loaded. You'll notice inside of the timeline that there's different keyframes for different parts of the course. And you'll notice on the scripts, where it has the action scripts tied to each keyframe, something different is happening on each keyframe. And by the time everything is loaded, it gets to the last keyframe, and that's where your course is loaded with all the rest of the content. That's if everything else gets loaded correctly. So let's go ahead and just explore what is getting loaded so we at least know here. And the very first thing, let's go into my actions. You'll notice that this basically just loads the XML file. So it's pulling in the XML file. It's basically loading the first course, and this is where my percentage loading player percentage text for this right here gets displayed, and that's the very first keyframe. Well, the second keyframe, let's go ahead and see that. Okay, so the second keyframe says if this is loaded, go ahead and go on to the next keyframe. If not, it will just pause, and if you've seen a course just pause on the loading, it's because something is not loading correctly. And so that's what frame 2 does. Let's go ahead and see frame 3. Frame 3 now loads the rest of the XML data, and it includes the player1.actionscript file. Now you'll notice inside of the player files, we have 3 different ActionScript files, external ActionScript files. The 3 files do different things. The player1.as file actually loads loads the content, loads the XML, parses the XML, and structures it out that way. Well, so that's what's happening at this point. So at this point, frame 4 is when the player1.as file is getting loaded, and then frame 5. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's doing that here, or what's doing here. And you can see that now the next thing is the player2.actionscript file. Well, the player2.actionscript file has everything to do with communication to SCORM. And so if you're wanting to say, or how this course gets communicated to whatever learning management system. So if you're wanting to go in and customize that, that's where you would go into the player2.as file. If you're not even wanting to touch that at all, which I have never touched it myself, you don't even mess with player 2. There's no reason to actually go into player2.as file and do anything on that. If you're wanting to worry about what gets loaded in the course and the XML file and everything, that's where you would go into player1.as. Now, the next thing, let's go ahead and go to frame 5 and talk about that. We're just talking about course structure, and then we'll get into changing stuff here in a second. Now, the next thing is including the player3.as file. The player3.as file is probably, if you're going to be doing any code, now keep in mind that you don't need to do any code, but you don't have to. But if you are going to be doing something, it's probably the player3 file that you're going to be using the most. The player3 file is where it has everything to do with loading a page. It has what the next and back buttons do, what the glossary button does, excuse me, what the exit button does. So if you're wanting to get in and look at that code, this is probably the file that you'll be customizing the most there. And that's when it gets loaded. And if everything gets loaded correctly, then you're on to the last frame, and the last frame just says load current page. And load current page is a function inside of player3.as that will just load the content on that page. So there's some other stuff that you can do, like if you wanted to create a button, I've created a custom style that had a button that went back to the very first page of the course no matter where they were at. You can do load current page and send in the current page will be page 1. So there's different things that you can do that would be helpful for. Okay, so that's our different frames. And so whenever you're customizing a style, I always like to first of all go into frame 5, so put my timeline on frame 5, and then go ahead and I can minimize my timeline, so it gives me a little bit more room to work with the actual styles here. Now let's explore a little bit of what is contained within the player file. Now the player file, you'll notice that there's different movie clips and buttons and stuff like that. You'll notice the top bars and bottom bars are just kind of the style of this as well, and the next and back buttons. We have an exit button, a glossary button, and an index button as well, or a read button. We have a page counter over here, audio off and on, a little powered by Unison. We have a title up here, a loading. This is where the table of contents is getting played. This is the main area, and then we have some empty movie clips. Now if I click on that empty movie clip and then I click on properties here, you'll notice that it says course logo. So that just, first of all, lets me know that that's where the course logo is going to get placed. The top left-hand side of the course logo will get placed right there. So that means what that player file is doing is it's looking for this course logo underscore logo file, and it's going to place this course underscore logo file. When a course gets loaded, it's going to place it the top left-hand side of it right here. So if I want to move that, all I have to do is select it and go ahead and just move it, say, okay, I want the top left-hand side to be over here. Let's go ahead and place that there. Let's take this and let's move that right here. And if I hit Control-Enter to export the movie, you can see now my course logo is being loaded somewhere else. And so that's how you can start moving around different things and adjusting that. And so if I want to go in and adjust the course logo to see what that looks like, I can open up that FLA and adjust that. Now you don't have to do that because you can actually come in and you can delete this movie clip right here. Actually, I don't, as a personal reason, and it's kind of good practice, I don't really delete any movie clip, because if I delete something, it may throw off the code. So if I'm not going to be using that, I kind of just move it above here, and the learner will never see that, and it will be off the screen there. And then I can just insert, so import to the stage. I can import a logo if it's never going to change. I can import a new logo and just kind of brand it with this style as well. So that's the course logo. I'm going to take you through the different parts and the different elements on what's getting loaded inside of the player file. The next file is, let's look at the property here. The next file is the text file, the title file. And you'll notice on the title file that some people say that the title file is not actually all the way, or there may not be enough room on here. And so you can go into the title file, go into the properties, and you can adjust the size of the title file, and then you can go in and even make it multi-line. You can adjust, you can add filters onto it, you can change the font as well. If you change the font, you may want to embed the font if it's a specific font, because if it's not on a person's computer, it'll change the font for you. So if you want that, you can add drop shadows to it. And so if you want the title to have a drop shadow, you can just go in here and do whatever you want inside of Flash. Now this isn't how to use Flash, how to use a Flash course. This is how to customize. So hopefully you know the types of things that you can do, but this is a dynamic text field. And I got something saying you wanted to draw. I'm not sure why you wanted to draw, but if you want to type that in there, or if you have a question or something, just let me know. Okay, so let's go ahead and explore some other things. You can see where the loading bar, if you want to adjust where the loading bar comes in, I can double click to get into that movie clip, and then I can take like different percentage here. Let me go ahead and change the color of this percentage and change the font size of this percentage as well, and in the position of it. And this, I think, is a nice style to take this percentage thing, the loading percentage, and put it right above the bar. Or I can go into the bar itself, and I can adjust what the, let me move this off a little bit. I can adjust what the bar looks like. So I can change the different colors of the bar. I can add another preloader inside of here, and so it will load that instead. I can completely delete this graphic if I want to. I can then come in and change the font size, font type, font color, of where it says loading, excuse me, where it says loading player as well. Okay, clicked it by accident, no problem. Okay, so that's how you can go in and start adjusting the loading percentage. Let's go ahead and double click to get out of it, and let's explore a little bit more. We have another empty movie clip. Let's click on the properties to see what that movie clip is. This is where the glossary _MC movie clip is getting loaded. So when someone clicks on the glossary button, the top left-hand side of the glossary is going to be right here. If I want the glossary to kind of pop up over here, I just move that movie clip. And the glossary is an external file that you can see right here, the glossary FLA. If I open that up, we'll talk about how to customize this here in a second, but that's what's getting pulled up inside of the course. So let's go ahead and run the course and show you that. So you can see this is my logo. If I click on glossary, the top left-hand side of where that empty movie clip is pulling the glossary right here. We'll talk about how to customize the glossary here in a second. Okay, so let's go over to this next one. Now you'll notice I'm trying to click on this next movie clip, but it's not really clicking. On it, but it's highlighting something else right here. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the timeline and see what it's highlighting. There's this file called transition mask. The transition mask is a blank movie clip that actually says this is the presentation, and when it does a transition like a fade, wipe, or zoom, or random, it's going to take all of that content that's within that transition mask, and that's what it fades. That's what it zooms and stuff like that. So the only thing that you're ever going to do with the transition mask is if you're giving it more room, real estate, you're just going to adjust that. So if you're using transitions, that will actually transition everything correctly. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and hide that so I can get to the stuff behind it. Now once I hide the transition mask, now I can click on that movie clip there. Now this movie clip is the presentation. The presentation is the main top left-hand side of every other page that gets pulled in. Now the way that ProForm and Unison courses work is basically when a person, and this is a good time to take a look at the SCO file here, when you're working with ProForm and Unison, the only thing that ProForm and Unison are doing is writing XML. That's all that it's doing. So when you're filling out the forms, it's just writing an XML file. And this is the XML file that it's writing. You'll notice that inside of this XML file, like I mentioned before, it's kind of the engine of the course. You'll notice that it has all information of what style you're using, how the completion gets transferred over, transition direction. So everything that you did when you set up the course, like whether or not you're using a glossary and stuff like that, all of that gets written to the XML file. Now when you added a page, like in this case, we added a page here, we added a text, image, and audio page. It's basically just saying, okay, you're using an image file, this is the image that you're using, this is the audio file that you're using, here's the path. It says it's inside of your media folder, and here's the audio file. Well, if we go inside of our media folder, let's go ahead and take a look at that. It's exactly right. That's what the file right here, it's inside of the media folder, and it's pointing to this Beethoven.aspianist.mp3 file. This is also where the load percentage is, if this is included in the table of contents, and so this has a lot of good information. This is the load percentage, what media format it's finding, what title, what's the title of the page. So I can adjust the title saying first page of the course right here, and if I save that and go back into this course, you'll notice even without pulling ProForm or Unison up, it's changed the page of the name of that page. And so you basically can just create a course here within the XML file as well, and adjust your course if needed. You can see it's using a page type of a text, image, and audio page, and here's the text of this page. So really, all that ProForm and Unison is doing when a course gets run is it's saying right here, it's saying pull up this page inside a template, inside of the folder SWFs, template SWFs, and then text, image, and audio, and go and pull up this SWF. Well, that SWF basically is in, let's go to that SWF real quick. Template SWFs and then text, image, and audio right here, rapid intake, text, image, and audio. It's pulling up this SWF. Well, this SWF is just the page. Let's go ahead and pull this up real quick, and I want to see if I can get it up here. This page that is being pulled up with the image and audio is exactly this page. And so if it's meant to fit perfectly inside of the course itself, and it's meant just to pull up the content of the SWF file. Well, why is that important to know? It's important to know because the presentation area is the top left-hand side of where all of those different page types inside of here are being pulled up and placed. And so if you're adjusting the area of where this all of the content's going to go, then you just move the presentation area. And you'll notice if I move this down here and hit Control-Enter, the top left-hand side of that image is now moved off the screen a little bit because it's basically positioned it off a little bit more. And so if I move like the table of contents over here, kind of off screen a little bit, and then I move the presentation area over here, now my presentation, I mean, there's some visual stuff that I need to update, but now my presentation is moved over, and now it gives me more room to work with. And so that's how you can go in and start customizing the style and everything there. So let's go ahead and Control-Z to get back to where we were. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the presentation area. We talked about the loading. Down here, let's go ahead and explore this movie clip. This is the controller. The controller is where the media controller gets pulled up. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the media controller real quick. Okay, media controller. And there's our media controller. It's a separate file. This is where our play button is, our media controller that scrubs back and forth. And so we'll talk about how to customize that later, but that's where that file gets pulled in. So if I want to move this down, I can move that down as well. Let's take a look at this button. Let's take a look at all the buttons down at the bottom now. You'll notice that I have this button here that has next. That's my next button. Let's click on this button. That is my back button, so that's how I go back to the next page. Let's click on this button. This is my exit button, exit_BTN, and then glossary button. This is when the learner clicks on this, it'll pull up the glossary. The transcript button, it's called index read, and that's basically just pulls up the index, the read function of the index. Audio off and on button as well, excuse me. And then my page counter, and then let's take a look at this one here. This one is key pressed _MC. I'm not exactly sure what that one does, to be honest with you. It's a hotkey somewhere, and I just leave that there, but it doesn't really matter where that's at all. And then I have my topic index shell. This shell is basically where your index is going to go. If you wanted to customize the index, we'll talk about how to do that here in a second, but this is basically just the shell. If I move that over, you notice that's just the position of where my index is going to be placed. So my index is now right there. It's kind of off the screen, and behind here is just an image, the background image that I can go in and change that image as well. So let's go ahead and move the shell back to be positioned right over there. And if I hit Control-Enter, now it's back where it should be there. We'll talk about how to adjust like the scroll bar. This is where the scroll bar gets placed, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, so we've explored some of the buttons. We've explored some of the empty movie clips. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the actual graphical changes as well. Now, while I'm doing that, I'm going to pull up, not Flex, sorry. Okay, I'm going to pull up Photoshop. Now, whether you're using Photoshop or you're using Illustrator, I personally prefer Illustrator, but whatever you're using to create graphics, you can do that, or if you're just using something inside of Flash. Actually, let's just use Flash for now. To get inside of these bars and start changing things out graphically, all you have to do is double-click to get into them. Let's go ahead and, first of all, let's give us some more room for a bigger title. And now that we have more room for a bigger title, let's now click into the empty movie clip here, or this movie clip. Now that I'm inside of this movie clip and I go to my properties, you'll notice this movie clip is just basically an image. It's just a bitmap that we created in Photoshop and then brought in and placed here. Well, that's really easy. If I wanted to create something in Photoshop, I just can click on here, get my properties, and say, okay, it's 955 by 80. High, and then I can just create a bitmap or a JPEG or a PNG file and just bring it in here, and whatever style I have, there you go. You just change the top bar. I'm just going to create a square over here for now, or you can just do something in Flash and kind of created it behind it because I think that one's set to be, let's send this to back. Actually, I'm going to create it on a new layer. I'm going to go go ahead and create an image. And then I'm going to place that there. And then I can just place this behind it, or I can delete it if I want to. Let's just go ahead and delete it. So now we have this bar here. Let's go ahead and adjust it a little bit more. And then let's change the color of it. Let's do a radial. Actually, I like this one a little better. Okay. Use the gradient transform tool. Adjust that a little bit more as well. Move that over. Okay. And there we go. So let's double click to get out. Hit Control Enter. And there we go. Our top bar is actually a lot different now. You can see that because of the style, the logo didn't show up that well before, but now it shows up a little bit better. So now we can go ahead and just adjust the logo, move it over a little bit more so it fits a little bit better that way. Okay, so let's go ahead and change let's give it a longer so we can see that we have a longer title. Let's go ahead and go into, instead of going into ProForm and Unison, let's just go into the SCO file and let's go into my title for the course and let's change this. Let's hit Control Enter, and you can see we have more room for a title as well. Okay. All right, so that is my title. Let's go ahead and that's how you customize the style here. Let's go ahead and exit out of that, and let's go into my style down at the bottom. My style down at the bottom, if I double click, I can do the same thing. Let's delete that, and let's create a new bar. And we'll just change that out real quick. Use the same thing. I'm just going to move over the gradient a little bit. All right, there we go. Double click to get out of it. And now you can see our bottom bar has been changed now. So we have a bottom bar changed. And let's go ahead and change this middle bar now. Now the middle bar is kind of tricky on this style. You don't want to select the topic shell because if you go in there, nothing's going to happen. What you want to do is you want to get the bar. You can either move this off to the side for now, or you want to get this bar down below here, which is, let's go ahead and look at the properties, index name background underscore MC. And let's double click to get into that. We have that image here as well. Let's just go ahead and delete that. And let's create a background image here, just like we did with the other ones. And instead of a gradient, let's just do kind of a, well, let's do a gradient, but let's do kind of a gray gradient here. There we go. Change it to a lighter gradient. Okay. Hit Control Enter, and there we go. We have our style that looks a little bit different now. Same buttons. We'll talk about the buttons here in a second, but you'll notice that we have a little bit of an overlap here. The overlap we can change because you'll notice that on this table of contents is above the background. Actually, I think it is. Yeah, this topic or the shell is actually on the index thing, which is above the actual background area. So if we take the index, or we take this, we can actually put it on a different thing, and so it's on a different layer, or we can take the index here, the background here, and we can put that on a different layer as well. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to change the size of it so it just matches up that way. Move that over a little bit more as well. Hit Control Enter, and that looks a little bit different now. Now you'll notice we also have this graphical shading thing. I don't really necessarily like that myself, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to delete that, which is, I can't see it here because it's actually hidden. So I'm going to uncheck where it says Present Background, and this is only on this style. And on this style, I can just go ahead and delete that movie clip. Hit Control Enter, and now you can see that we don't have that shading in the background anymore. One more thing down here that I'm going to change is just stretch this out a little bit more. And there we go. Actually, All right. Sorry, I'm a little picky about that. Still have this little white line, but it just takes some adjusting to get it perfect how you want it as well. Okay, so that is our controller. That's how we start going in and customizing this. Now we can go in and start doing the same thing with our buttons. You'll notice that you have one or two things that you can do. You can double click to get into the button, and you can see that on the button we have different up states, over states, down states, and disabled states as well. Well, with this button, you don't want to do this with every button because some of them rely on this type of a button where it has different states like that. So you may want to just keep it there. But with the next and back buttons, you can actually go in, and let's go ahead and create just an object here. With that, I can go in and just create this to a movie clip, convert to a button, and then I can name it the same. As long as I name it the same thing, I'm just going to grab the next _ MC, place it on this movie clip, and then I can delete the old movie clip. And now if I hit Control-Enter, that will be the next button, which I don't have 2 pages here, but that will be my next button. Then I can change the over states, down states, up states, and disabled states as well inside of this button. So that's how you can go in and you can start customizing at least the next and back buttons is by changing that. Now some of the buttons you don't want to do that for. You can, however, do that for the exit button. If you wanted to go double click to get in, you'll notice that the exit button has an overstate and an upstate. You can just go in, and these are just bitmaps right now. You can go in and change those. I'm not going to, hopefully you understand buttons already, so I'm not going to go over how to create a button. I mean, that's about as much as I'll go over. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the ones that are a little bit different. In this case, the glossary is the same, so it has like different images that it switches from. Now, you don't have to, one rule of thumb is it depends on the style that you're starting from. If the style that you're starting from with the glossary is like this, you can create any other button and it doesn't matter. But some styles have glossaries that have more extensive buttons. If they have more extensive buttons, it's better to, like this one, the index button, it's better to just change the different states inside of here and not create a different button there, because this one has 4 different states. It has a read state, has an index state, index over state, and just a regular read state as well. And so in this case, I don't want to create a completely new button. Oh, sorry. Kind of a touchy scroll pad here, but I don't want to create a new one completely. I can just go ahead and start it from here. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. Always take a look at the button before you delete it. But as long as buttons like the next and back buttons, as long as you have a new button in with the same name, then it will be fine that way. Now, one other thing that you can do, let's go ahead and close this out real quick. One other thing you can do is you can actually go in and you can customize or you can take buttons from other courses. So I'm going to go ahead and go into a course that already exists. And I'm going to take a button from this course, like the audio off and on button here. I'm going to just hit Control-C, and then I'm just going to delete this audio off and on, hit Control-V, and then I'm going to replace the existing item. And now if I go ahead and I hit Control-Enter, that audio off and on button will work just fine. And I didn't need to do anything else because it's already set to do the same thing. So that's my audio off and on button. So you can take elements from other styles. You can go in and create your own elements as well, however you want it to do. Now with this audio off and on button, you'll notice that it's a little bit different on the off, over, up, and down states, because it looks like at first that they're all showing at the same time. Well, that's where the text actually comes in handy. You'll notice that this off, over, and down, off, up. If you hide those and then uncheck, say this is the off, over, and down, this is the on, up, those are the things that you want to go in and start customizing. You don't want to customize the different frames here. You want to just go into these different elements, hide them, unhide them, and then make the changes there. Now if you click on it, for example, when it's hidden or unhidden here, for example, let me hide that. And let me click on this button. You'll notice that these buttons have different names. If you're going to change the elements of what this audio off and on button looks like, double click to get into that until you can change the element visually, and then you can just copy and paste in the new audio sign. And so it's don't change the names of that. Go ahead and just go into where you know it's just a graphic, and then you can change that element there. Okay. I can go into the text, like my next and back buttons. I can change the text there, page numbering text, and do different things there. Okay, let me go ahead and just come out of here, and let me talk about one more thing inside of the player style. If you're creating a custom style that has an index that slides in and out, you'll notice that if we come back to this file here, this style that I created has a menu that the menu, if I click on it, will slide in. Well, if you want to start from this style, we give you this style for free. If you want to start from this style, you don't have to do any of the programming for the menu, hide, and everything like that. You just change the different elements of this style specifically. Or if you're starting from a style that may not have a menu that slides in and out, and you just want to take it off the screen, you just slide that off, and then you'll have to add a button inside of there. Well, if you do that, you will, and if you're changing the presentation mode at all, if I change that so I have more real estate here, hit Control-Enter, you'll notice that it moves over, but it's still not maximizing the entire screen. If you want it to maximize the entire screen, you do need to come into frame 5, and if I click on frame 5 and then go into my action script, you'll notice where it says presentation size, height, and width. Right now it's only using 493 by 664. Well, now with this style, I'm going to have more room to work with. And so what I need to do is I need to take or measure how much room I have to work with now. So I can go ahead and just measure that out, and you can see that I have now about 947 by 532. Well, if I go into my frame 5, and then my action script, now I can change that to 947 by 532. Once I change that, now whatever page, I don't have much text here, but if this had more text, now it would fill up the entire screen. And so that's a way to use more of your real estate. If you wanted to, then you would just have to add a button that slides in the menu in and out as well from there. Okay, I'm just going to hit Control-Enter to get back to where we were before. Okay, so that's the player style. We've explored a lot of the player style, the next and back buttons, different controls, and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and I'm going to see if there's any questions, and I'm not seeing any yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and just continue. By continuing, we're going to talk about different parts of the courses. Like once you've gotten your style here, pretty much how you want it, then you can come in and start customizing different elements of other styles. Now, if you have a style like this glossary style here, you'll notice this is what it looks like now. But I have a different course that I've downloaded that the glossary I may like a little bit better. If I like this one a little bit better, I can simply just go ahead and drag out those files, and the CSS files, the menu CSS, glossary AAS file, just anything that has to do with glossary, and then I can just hit Control-V, replace them, replace, and there we go. If I go ahead and preview this now and hit the glossary button, now my new glossary from this different course will pull in. So that's just a quick way to take a glossary from a different course and apply it to this course just by dragging and dropping in the files. Or you can open up that glossary inside of Flash, and now you can go in and customize that glossary. Now there's different elements of the glossary that you can adjust. In this glossary, you'll notice that we have a definitions area. The definitions area is a component, so you don't want to adjust any of the you can't adjust any of the text field. Like if I click on properties, you can't adjust what the size is and stuff like that. You can, however, adjust inside of the properties here, like the menu text, the term, and you can adjust the size, width, and height, and everything like that. However, if you do make a change to it, it's not going to make it's not going to make much of a difference at all. The reason why is because the text inside of the glossary, the definitions text, the title text, and the menu text is all controlled by cascading style sheets. And so if I come into the course folder, you'll notice that I have a glossary.css, and then I have a glossary menu.css. Well, let's go ahead and open those up inside of Dreamweaver here, and let's take a look at what those CSS files look like. Well, the menu, you'll notice that I have three different areas if you're familiar with CSS. I have a link where my link color, my font weight, active font color, and then my hover, when I hover over it, it hovers over a different color, which I can change that to a different Let's say we want it to be green here. Hit hover over like that. Go ahead and save it. And now if I preview my player here, that one. If I preview my player, go to my glossary, and it didn't change. Actually, it did change, but I didn't get the right color because I think you need to use, Dreamweaver only uses the 3 code key, and I think you need to use all of it. So let's go ahead and get all of it here. I'm not sure what all of it is, but let's see if that will change this. Okay. So let's just go ahead and add that code here and add the glossary. And you'll notice that I didn't even need to refresh it when I brought it to the glossary. Then my hover over changed to that color. So that's how you change the different colors of the glossary. It's by going into the CSS. Well, that's the menu. Let's go ahead and go into the normal glossary CSS file. And this is where you can see that we can have the active files, hover files, the body text, how big the body text is, the heading, and different references to different color files as well, or the hex values of the control of the color values as well. Okay, so that's how you change cascading style sheets for that, for the glossary. So you can either go in and you can change the visual elements of the glossary, changing the top bar, changing the background of it as well, and then you can go in and change the cascading style sheets. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the media controller. The media controller is where you can go in and you can change different elements of it, like the play, rewind. You can change around and say, okay, I want the play to be first, the reset to be first, the play to be second. And then let's go ahead and go in here and change out this little scrubber here. Let's change that out graphically, and let's change it to just a square. Okay. Let's do a different color than white. Change that here. And now let's change that. Hit Control Enter. Right now I see a blank because it's not really pulling anything up. But now if I go back into the player.fla file and hit Control Enter, you'll notice my scrubber is now changed. It's that block. It's that brown block here. And so that's how I go in. I can change it inside of the player file or the media controller. Let's go ahead and change this bar to a different color. Let's change it to kind of a green. Hit Control Enter. And let's go back into the course, the player.fla, hit Control Enter. And there we go. It's a green with a black square that I can take and control there. And then I can go in and I can go into my play and pause buttons, and I can change the up states, over states, pause states, and stuff like that right inside of here. I can go in my reset and change the overstate and downstate for that as well. Okay, so that's how you can go in and start customizing the different buttons for your media controller. I'm kind of going over some of these quick here, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. The narration button, if you pull this up, or the narration text, just has a blank area, and that's really all that it's meant to do. You can, however, change the size of this, and so you have more of a narration area. And the narration basically just, when you click on read, this is the narration text. It just brings up that box and it displays the text. So you don't really need to design something in the background unless you want to, because it'll just use the background of the index elements as well there. Okay, so the table of contents is something else that you need to change, or if you need to change, let's go ahead and go into that file. And in that file, I'm going to pull up the toc.fla file. The toc.fla file has where if you wanted to change the table of contents. The table of contents, just to keep in mind what that is, let's go ahead and hit Control Enter in our player.fla. And you'll notice I have a check mark and I have this page here. That's the table of contents. So we can go into the table of contents and we have a couple different elements that you can adjust. First of all, you can adjust what the highlight looks like. Again, I don't recommend deleting that. I recommend going into it and then changing the colors or changing the different aspects of it from there instead of actually deleting something. Now it has a blue highlight instead. If I hit Control Enter on that, let's go ahead, and it doesn't look like much because it kind of looks like it's off-centered, but don't worry about that because once I hit Control Enter inside of the player.fla, it's going to put it together fine. And now I have a blue highlight instead of that yellow highlight. Let's go back in here, and instead of a check mark, let's just go ahead and delete that. Let's just add a star. And let me go into the properties and change my tool options to be a star. We're going to give them a star for completing this. And that they get this when they complete a page. And so this is good to, instead of a check mark, say Control Enter. Now I get a star. Let's go back to my player file, hit Control Enter. And it's a little off, my star there. Let's go ahead and adjust it here. Let's position it down here a little bit. Because this is the top left-hand side of the movie clip, so now let's go ahead and see that. Go back into player. And there you can see. I may want to adjust it a little bit more, but I'll get a star every time I go across something. So if you want to use like we could even use like a little twirl for our company, or if you have like a symbol for your company that you want to use instead, that's where you would adjust it. So it's really useful for doing that. Now the topic text, you can, if you have topics inside of there, this is what the text will look like. You can place something behind it. Some of our styles have kind of a bar that go across the topic as well. So you can do different things like that. That's your table of contents. Let's go ahead and go to a different file here. We talked about the narration, we talked about table of contents, we talked about the glossary, we talked about course_logo, and we talked about the media controller. And the different files, like the narration has a cascading style sheets file that you can go in and adjust. The table of contents does not have a cascading style sheet file, but you can see where the action script files are. If you wanted to adjust, you keep in mind that if you're using Unison, if you're inside of a course inside of Unison, let's go ahead and go into one of these courses here. And this is the same thing with ProForm. Whenever you're using a style, you picked a course style, and then when you're on a text page, you'll notice that it says override default settings. Well, the default settings, someone can go in here and they can adjust what the default is and override it to be something different. If you don't want the person to actually have to use the override defaults or to do this every time to change the size, to change the font type to a certain type, well, you can adjust the cascading style sheet for every page so the default is the cascading style sheet. So in that case, let's go ahead and hide this, and let's go back into this folder, and let's go into the SWF's page. The SWF's page remember, is where all of your pages are, so like your text, image, and audio pages. And so I'm going to go into my template SWF's page, and I'm going to go into this template_styles.css. Let's go ahead and open that with Dreamweaver. And you'll notice this is where my cascading style sheet is. And for my page text, which is the text that I was just talking about, it's defaulted at 12 pixels. Well, if I want to default it at 16 pixels, you notice if I hit Control Enter on there, the page text actually got bigger because now it's still using the default text, which in this case, the default text is 16 pixels now, so it got bigger. Let's go ahead and change it to 8 pixels. If I hit Control Enter without me doing anything in here, I just hit Save. Now you can see that the page text went down to 8 pixels because it's reading that cascading style sheet, and the cascading style sheet is very useful. So if you always have a default size, if you want it always bolded, a certain color as well, you can change that here. Same thing with the note text, the heading text, the header, the terms for your definitions, target correct, stuff like that. Okay, so these cascading style sheets are very useful to keep in mind. The template styles.css will affect the default text for every single page inside of here except for the games. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so that is how you go in and start customizing some of the text. Once you have that default text established, every time someone uses this style on your team, they'll automatically, without having to rewrite the code in there, they'll automatically have the default size and everything. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause here, and we're going to take a little bit of a break here. So let me go ahead and actually stop, and let's take a break, and we'll be back in a second. All right, we're back now, so let's go ahead and get going again. And so that's how you go in and you start customizing the cascading style sheets. We'll talk about the tips. If you wanted to, like, when you're using a tip with a tip icon, you can come in here and adjust that. So it's good to explore a little bit of that. Okay. So let's talk about adjusting some of the page types. We've talked about mainly the user interface, and to give you an idea of the types of things that what has already been done about that, let's go ahead and go to our website. Let's click on resources, and let's click on, I believe, case studies. Let's see if that's, no, that's not it. Let's go ahead and look at showcase. This will give you a look at some of the styles that have been done. Let's click on this Vonage one. On this Vonage one, to give you an idea, just like we've been doing before, he went in here and he actually took the media controller, adjusted the play button, reset button, adjusted the media controller bar, and everything like that. So really all he did was do that graphically. The next and back buttons he adjusted, but he did add his own functionality. He added a volume up and down button. The volume up and down button is just he added some code onto it. A mute button is up there as well, and then he added the index to slide in and out. The transcript button, actually he made the transcript pop up in a different window, and so this way when the person's going through here, the transcript is actually on in the different window for more reference there. So those are the types of things that you can do. You pretty much, the world is open to you. Because it is Flash, you can go in and customize it, and you change it once, and you make this applicable to everyone else when they use this style, basically. And here's an example of the glossary. He changed the menu cascading style sheet. He changed, changed the cascading style sheet for these controllers as well. Okay, so hopefully that helps. I like to look at these to kind of get an idea of the different types of things that can be done inside of ProForm here. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. We're going to talk a little bit about the course, the page types that are coming in. The page types that are coming in, if you remember, the pages are inside of SWFs. And then you'll notice, first of all, that we have this quiz page. The quiz page, if you want to adjust the quiz in any way, you can open up the quiz.fla file. Let me just close out some of these real quick. Okay. And the way that the quiz is structured is each frame inside of Flash is a different quiz question. And so I can go through each of these frames and I can adjust the graphics for the quiz. And so I can take away this question mark and add something else. I can change the text field, make that bold. Let's go ahead and just make this paragraph options. I never remember. Actually, it depends on the style. But let's go ahead and change that, and then we can go on and we can add our own watermarks behind here. We can add our own buttons into the quiz. If we wanted like a volume control button here, you can do that as well. So as I go through each frame, then I can go through and position that here. And so that's how you go through and you adjust the quiz. Hit Control-Enter, and then whenever you use the quiz, that style is going to apply to that page. So now let's go ahead and go on to the other pages, like template SWFs. If I wanted to go into like the concentration game and then go into the concentration FLA there and open that up, you'll notice that the concentration game, I can go in and adjust the different styles for the concentration game. I can adjust how the animation gets changed when it reveals whatever's behind it at that point. I can change the colors. I can change the different aspects there. I can change the text areas, like the title text and stuff like that. The same thing with other pages. Let's go ahead and go into other pages here. Now we're not going over how to create new pages. Again, that's in a different area, but we are going over how to customize some of these pages. So if I wanted to, on the step-by-step page, if I wanted to change what the text of the buttons or the button styles look like, I can do that as well. What these next and back buttons look like, I can just come in here, hit Control-Enter, and then whenever someone uses the style and they're using the step-by-step page, it'll have the new image replaced inside of there. Soft skill simulation page. If I go into the soft skill simulation page, I can change out the buttons here. The show feedback button. If I want to double-click into there and change where it says show feedback into something different, I can do that. If I want to double-click and get into the buttons that someone clicks on, I can do that as well. And then the controller here. So there's a lot of different things that I can do inside of here, inside of these pages to make it look and feel more how I want it to look and feel. And then once I made those changes and I apply this style to other files, then whenever someone uses that style, then it will be applicable that way. Okay, so that's really all that I'm going to go over as far as how to get to these files and how to start customizing. The reason why is because from here, it's basically up to you. It's basically up to you graphically. It's how you want to change them and playing around with them and stuff like that. Well, now I'm going to talk about how to make these styles stick for other people. So one way inside, I'm going to close out some of these things. One way is once I've created this custom style, I may now want to, if I'm using Unison, what you want to do is you want to compress it or zip it up. And once you zip it up, you then want to come back into Unison. So let's go ahead and go into Unison. And let me close out a flash here. And let's go into the Admin tab, the same place that we got the files. Let's click on View Update Projects. Let's go up to my projects, these files here. And now, this is where I downloaded the files, but now I can upload the files. So I can upload the zip file, but then there's also some other things that I need to upload as well and point to. So I'm going to click on Browse, and I'm going to take that zip file, and then I'm going to upload it, and then I'm going to upload the scope file, the quiz file, and the glossary file. Now, this is only if you want to apply this style only to this course. If you want to only apply it to this course, this is what you would do. Or if you wanted to make this style usable for everyone else on your team, then instead of going to a specific project, you want to come down to the customization area. When you come down to the customization area, there's this custom course styles link here. When you click on custom course styles, you'll notice all of the styles that you've already created. Now, if you have a new version of this style, you can browse and upload a new version of it. Or you can add a new style and say, okay, this is the custom style. And then I can browse and then just find that zip file, hit open, and hit upload. That's all I have to do. As soon as I do that, it's going to take a couple minutes, but as soon as I do that, people that have already created courses can go ahead and just apply your new style to their new course, and all of their content will then adapt to the new style. In ProForm, it's a little bit more intensive, and so let's go ahead and go over how to do that in ProForm. Let's say we've created the custom style inside of this folder. And this is where we have all of my custom stuff here. Well, now I need to place these custom files inside of a folder inside of ProForm. So what I need to do is I need to go into my computer. So I like to pull up two different windows. I like to have the custom style pulled up in one window, and then I like to pull up my computer in a different window. So I'm going to go into my C drive. And then once I go into my C drive, I'm going to go into Program Files. Once I go into Program Files, I'm going to go into Rapid Intake. Once I go into Rapid Intake, I'm going to go into ProForm, Rapid eLearning Studio, Course Files, and then this is where I'm either using the 1024 by 768 or 800 by 600. In this case, I started from a 1024 by 768, so I'm just going to go ahead and go into that. And then these are all of my styles already available inside of ProForm. Well, if I've created a new style, what I like to do is I like to take the style that I started from, which in this case was Center Stage Player 8, and I like to copy and paste it. The reason why is because you don't have to copy all of the new files in here because some files you didn't change. And so this is just a way to know, okay, these are files that I do have to copy in, these are files that I don't. So now I can rename this. Let's go ahead and rename it. I'm going to take away copy here. And the JPEG is basically just a way to make sure or to let you know that this is a style that other people can't change the colors of. You don't have to put that here. In fact, whenever you put an underscore there, you can just say BAT, my last name, and anyone who's using ProForm will not see anything after the underscore, so it's for your own reference. But you can name it whatever you want. Let's just say custom course. Well, as soon as I do that, here's my custom course player 8. Let's go ahead and go into that. Well, you'll notice I have a lot of files in here, but it's not all of the files that reside inside of here. So what I like to do is I like to go through and say, okay, I'm going to replace all of these existing files in here. And so I'm first of all going to replace the glossary. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab all of the glossary files. I don't have to actually grab all of them. I only need the glossary cascading style sheet, glossary FLA, glossary SWF, and glossary menu cascading style sheet. So really that's all that I need to go ahead and grab. I don't need to grab the glossary.actionscript file. And so once I've grabbed those files, I can then just copy. I don't just drag them over because it'll take them out of this course, but I copy and I paste them inside of here. As soon as I paste them inside of here, yes, I want to copy and replace them. Hit continue, and then it's going to copy and replace it. So now when someone actually launches ProForm, and you do that for every file inside of here, when someone launches ProForm now, if you already have it launched, you may want to start it and then restart it. But when someone launches ProForm and they select the drop-down box, the Custom Course Player 8 folder or the style will actually be part of the drop-down box now. And so they can choose this style, and every custom interaction, the custom glossary that you changed will be inside of here. Now you'll notice that the course underscore logo is not inside of here, inside of the style. If you've created a custom logo, you do want to copy and paste the custom logo inside of here. The reason why is because what ProForm does is it first of all pulls from everything inside of here. And then it says, okay, you're missing all of these other files. If you're missing all these other files, let's go into the default style, which is right here, a couple folders back. And now let's go grab this course logo. So the course logo is always the same, which by default is a rapid intake logo. You can even come into the default folder, copy and replace your course logo in here. So every course that you create is going to have your logo, no matter what style you actually choose. And so those are things you can do, or if you want this custom course logo to only apply to your custom player style, then you place this file in here. So again, when ProForm creates a course, it first of all looks through these files, grabs these files, and then whatever files are missing to run a course, it then pulls it from the default folder. Okay, so we have ProForm launched. Let's go ahead and hit try. Let's just go into an existing course, hit Edit Project, select from the drop-down box, Custom Course Player 8. And you notice the underscore bat is not visible, but there it is, Custom Course Player 8. I can select that, and then I can use that style. Now, obviously, that's showing up as a different player file, a preview file, so you may want to go into the course here, and there's a preview.swf file, which is basically what it uses, and you may want to take a screenshot, make it in SWF, and then just type in preview.swf, replace this, and whenever you do, whenever you replace that, will get pulled up for the preview there. So that's how you create a custom style, get it ready for ProForm, get it ready for Unison. Once it's inside of Unison, all you have to do is upload it. It's a little bit easier inside of Unison, and also easier to, you don't have to take this folder and give it to everyone else, because in ProForm, you then have to take this folder and you have to make sure everyone has that folder installed in the same location that you have it, so then they have it inside of ProForm. But with Unison, you just upload it, and then everyone else now has it inside of here. And let's go to that custom, I named it something different in here, custom style. And now if I use this custom style, this will apply here. Let's go ahead and update course and see what it looks like. Hit save and preview, and there we go. So I created an SWF that was meant for a bigger screen, but in this case, here's my entire course. My star will show up on every screen here, and as I go through my course, I didn't change any of the sizes or anything like that, but my next and back button works fine, and everything like that, so I can see what that custom style looks like. So that's how you create a custom style, make it part of Unison, make it part of ProForm, and hopefully that was helpful. If you have any more questions, feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to help. If you click on Company, contact us, and my contact information is right here, Jeff Batt. And then again, you can watch this recording later, resources, training, and then live online webinars. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.